Hey YouTube, Anthony here. I wrote a couple thoughts down on September 11th, 2001, as today is the anniversary, the 12-year anniversary of the attacks on our country. So I thought I would do, I guess, a memorial video and just go over some of my thoughts, and then feel free to post any comments and or video responses if you want to this video on some of your thoughts and reflections on September 11th as well. Do you remember what you were doing that day 12 years ago? I was new to South Florida at that time. I had relocated down here from excuse me, from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in June of 2001. So I was only here a few months when the September 11th attacks occurred. I was working at the University of Miami, and I remember distinctly I was in the dormitory areas in one of the buildings doing a peer review on some of the facilities there, and I remember walking into one of the student rooms or student gathering areas or public areas that had a television on in the room, and I remember seeing the video or the video of the plane hitting the World Trade Center, the first tower, and I at first thought it was like some type of movie they were filming, and like a special effects type stunt they were showing, until finally it sunk in what was happening, and my heart sunk, and I'm sure we've all had that instant where we knew that something very, very bad had happened, and then emotions just ran wild after that. My mind was racing. The only thing I wanted to do was to get back home to my family, to call my loved ones in New York, and just, that my heart just began racing. What I wanted to do in this video was just to let all the families of people that lost loved ones, friends, co-workers, in those attacks at the World Trade Center in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and the Pentagon, that this was not a tragedy, not a disaster, and not an incident. This was an attack on our country, and make no mistake about it, and never forget what happened that day. I pray for the first responders, the fire departments, the police, the EMS, and just the regular people that came to help and to render aid and to rescue. And like I said, many of us knew people, family members, friends, co-workers who were either involved in some way, died, assisted in some way. Many gave a part of themselves during the hours, days, and months after the attacks. You had first responders, volunteers, church groups, schools, civic organizations. I mean, people came out of their woodwork to help and support. Regular everyday people, strangers helping strangers, the Red Cross, the Salvation Army, the list can go on and on. My brother, Rocco, who I share another channel with on YouTube, North South Survival, he is a NYPD detective, and during the event at Ground Zero, he was called to work. I don't know how long after, but shortly after the attacks, he was called down there, or dispatched or reassigned from his detective duties down to the World Trade Center And what he did was not a very good job, a very hard job, a job that would that many of us probably wouldn't be able to do. He worked the morgue that they had set up, and one of his jobs was to catalog fragments of body parts, pieces of body parts, whatever came in that could link somebody to be identified. He would basically tag it, bag it, catalog it, and do whatever. He can go into more detail on what exactly he did, but I know he did that for many, many months while the cleanup was going on and while the rescue efforts were going on. I also had an uncle that at the time owned a large company in the New York metropolitan area, heavy equipment company, and he was involved in supplying, what do you call, big, large dump trucks, container trucks, to haul out debris for months and months after the event, after the attacks. One of my good friends from New York was dispatched there, and he actually was commissioned later on and actually ended up doing a book that is available to the public now on all the photos that were, many of the photos that were taken of the Ground Zero site. And he put that together and published it in a book on the World Trade Center. And I have some other thoughts. For a brief moment, it looked as if America was going to have a spiritual revival. People were, churches were packed. I remember people just holding hands, and people in prayer, people comforting one another, helping one another, strangers helping one another. The color of our skin didn't matter. It didn't matter who you were, what ethnic group you were. All those things that seemed to divide us, we came together for a brief moment. For a brief moment, material things didn't seem to matter. What was important was family, relationships, love for our fellow man. Things that we should be doing every day, we did during those weeks and months after the attacks. And this was nationwide. But it soon died down, and it was as if, American politicians started coming out of the woodwork, becoming defiant and vowing to come back bigger and stronger. And, it was important to give people a sense of, that things were going to be okay and we were going to rebuild and things of that nature. But it almost seemed to be some type of defiance that we can do it on our own, and we don't need God in the equation anymore. And and feel free to share your stories or your feelings or thoughts on this. This is my feelings and thoughts on it. But that's how I feel. I feel that we as a nation began a revival for a brief moment. The flame went out, and then we sort of went back to our old ways. We became complacent, forgetful, and now 12 years later, though many of us have not forgotten, there's many people that don't seem to realize the severity and the impact that these attacks have made on our country, including our politicians. And so I think we need to get back to revival mode, get back to our roots, our foundation, our godly principles, our biblical principles that have helped found this country and make it great, and ask for God's blessings to be upon us. Take some time today to reflect on the attacks that took place. Pray for those who lost loved ones. Pray for all of those who assisted that day. Pray for everyone's lives that were touched that day. Pray for our leaders, both then and now, that are, pray that they will help guide our country back on track again. and get us back to our roots, and so that we may prosper economically, socially, and spiritually once again. And I'll leave you with this from 2 Chronicles chapter 7, verse 14. It's probably going to ring familiar to many of your ears, but what rings familiar to our ears we must sow in our hearts. 2 Chronicles 7:14 says this: "If my people, who are called by my name, will humble themselves and pray, and seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven, and I will forgive their sin, and I will heal their land." God bless. Take care. Let me know your thoughts. Anthony signing off. God bless and take care.